Hey guys, it's Kaz here, and today I'm going to be doing my March wrap up. So, I read several things in March, let's just jump straight in. But first of all, I'm not actually going to talk about these, but the first 7 books I read in March were most of the World Book Day books. So, I'll go through the titles. We have Boot It by A.M. Dasu, Kay's Brilliant Brains by Adam Kay, A Dragon Realm by Kate and Kevin Sang. I mean, A Dragon Realm Adventure. A Dragon Realm doesn't make sense, does it? Being an Ally, this is a bunch of different authors. The Boy with Wings, Attack of the Rampaging Robot by Lenny Henry. The Strange Worlds, Travel Agency, Adventure in the Floating Mountain by L.D. Lipinski. It's a lot of words to remember on that one. And finally, Dave Pigeon, Bookshop Mayhem by Swapina Haddo. So I'm not actually going to talk about these books because I did a whole vlog. I will leave it linked up there, and I'll leave it at the end so it's easy to click on. But yeah, I did a whole vlog reading most. I only didn't pick up one normal book, which was a random Spider-Man one, I think. And then there were 2 or 3 little like child's books, you know, that's like 10 pages for little kids. But all the rest of them, but these are all the books in 2023 World Book Day, and I had a really good time. Go watch that vlog to hear all my thoughts and my feelings. Little spoilers, there was 1 5-star and there was 1 that I wasn't really a fan of, so go watch that video if you want to find out which ones are which. After that I read Play the Game by Charlene Allen. This one, as you can see, is an arc. I will put up a picture of the cover here in case you want to look for it. But yeah, this one I had mixed feelings about. So what this is about, let me look at the back because I'm terrible with names. This is about VZ and his friend Ed. Yes, so his friend Ed was killed by a police officer, and that police officer got away with it because that's what life's all about, apparently. And then a year later, that police officer gets killed in the same place, which is like the parking lot of the restaurant that VZ and all of his friends work at. And then it's like part mystery, trying to figure out what's going on, like who killed this police officer. Was it anything to do with him killing Ed? Was it a revenge thing? Was it a random thing? All that jazz. But then at the same time, we've also got this plot where VZ is working on this game that Ed made. He made this computer game and he wanted to enter it into this competition. So he's finishing it off, going through the game to see if it works, make sure there's no bugs, so he can take it to this place to show it off. So that's pretty much the premise. So where my mixed feelings are at. The main storyline I enjoyed. There was a bit of a mystery to it. We had different things. We're trying to figure out who did it. Different people are like under suspicion and stuff. And there's some snooping and all that jazz. I enjoyed that, I did. The game element of it, first of all, this is an arc, so stuff may have been changed, but I felt like that the game element was the weakest part of this book. Just in terms of what the game entailed. So it's kind of like one of those mystery games, like a point and click game where there's like the riddle and then you have to figure out the riddle and then that's how stuff happens. But like the riddles felt so random and on a tangent. And like in here specifically, it talks about how Ed wanted this game to, it should be, anybody should be able to play it and do it. But then at the same time, at other points in the book, VZ will be looking through it and then he'll think like, oh yeah, this very specific thing that I remember me and Ed doing, and then that's how I'm going to get this answers to this. So I'm like, if the answers are so specific to this thing that you and him did, or you know about him personally, how is that also going to like relate into just other people playing the game? It just felt really disjointed, the whole game thing. Like some of the answers just felt so wildly out there. Like I love puzzle games, I love going to escape rooms, I love doing the like escape rooms in an envelope. I very much enjoy that. But like nowhere in this book when I was reading all the puzzles did I get the answer. So like that makes me think that how would anybody be able to play the game unless they have this weird thinking of VZ thinking, oh well, Ed thought this and he did this one time, so that means that this is going to happen and then the puzzle is going to be this. I just thought the puzzle bit was just very weak. Like I said, I don't know if it's been changed or adapted or anything for the proper release. Maybe other people will read it and understand it, but I didn't think it was very good, like that element of the book. But I did enjoy the rest of the book in general, but I do think that was the weakest part. Like, for example, one point, I can't remember the exact wording of the clue or whatever, but like the point that VZ decided Ed was talking about is, oh, rats in films. And then he's like, oh yeah, Remy from Ratatouille, and then his brother, and then Ben, which is in that Michael Jackson film. And I was like, bro, who remembers that Remy from Ratatouille has a brother? Because I don't, so I wouldn't have been able to put that in. Like, in this specific question, if I put any other rat from any other film, would it have worked? Would it have opened this part of the game? Would I have to specifically remember that Remy has a brother and put his name into the game to get to that bit? It just felt very, very, yeah, you get what I'm saying. I'm gonna move on. But I feel like I've only just talked about the negatives. So I did really enjoy the book in general. I enjoyed the mystery aspect, I liked the characters, all that jazz. It's just that one thing that stood out to me because I'm a very big escape/puzzle fan, and it wasn't it. But yeah, like I said, moving on. After that I read Proud. It's an anthology, a bunch of different authors, like they write proper novels, and then there's some poetry in here. There's also artists, like each individual story has a piece of art at the end of it that relates to that story, and it's all about LGBTQIA plus things, being proud, pride, proud, you get it, that's what the title is. I enjoyed it. I thought most of the stories were pretty decent. I can't remember any that stood out to me to being terrible, so they couldn't have been that bad. Normally I'm a little bit like about anthologies, but in general I did enjoy this one. Some of them were obviously better than others, but that's just what you're going to get from anthologies. It had a bunch of people in as well that I enjoy their work of, and then people that I don't know, so it's a nice little mixture. I think the poetry for me was probably the least good bit, because I'm just not very good at poetry and knowing how to get poetry. There's like one poetry book that I love that's 5 stars, and everything else I'm just like, what is poetry? So I think those were the bits that sort of lost me the most, but in general I did very much enjoy this book. I guess we're kind of halfway through, we'll call it halfway through, so let's just head on over to a message from one of the spawns, and I shall be back with the rest of the books. So after that I read Never Ever Getting Back Together by Sophie Gonzalez. This was a buddy read and we both very much loved it. I just love Sophie Gonzalez. She's just so good at writing characters and writing books and writing contemporary books, and like there's always miscommunication, but she knows how to do it well, and that is like my least favourite trope, but Sophie Gonzalez knows how to do it in a realistic way, so it shows that it can be good, it can actually be effective. But yes, basically this book is about, it's kind of like, you know, with them dating shows where there's one guy and then loads of girls and then they have to kick out a girl each episode and then end up with the last one. It's that, but it's all this guy's exes and they're all there. And we're following Maya, who had a terrible time with her relationship. He cheated on her. She's not a fan, she didn't want to go on the show, but then she's like, maybe I can go on the show and show people that he's a terrible person. And then we also have another character, because this is dual perspectives, Sky, and she very much remembers a nice enjoyable romance with him. They just sort of parted ways because they went separate ways and moved to different places, but she also happens to be the girl that he started seeing while he was still seeing Maya, so she's not happy about that. So it's these two characters. There's a lot of butting heads, there's a lot of like devious planning to try and take down Geordie, but there's also a sapphic romance. It's like enemies to friends to lovers, and it's very good. Sophie Gonzalez can do no wrong. She's just so good at writing contemporary romancy type books, and I just loved this as much as I loved the other ones, so read it. It's just really fun as well because we're in this place like behind the scenes of these shows, so you'll be reading it and they're sat there and they're filming the same thing over and over again because we have to get the right shot, you know, like reality TV is not actually reality. I just thought that was a really fun element as well, so yes, very much enjoyed this one. After that I read Labyrinth Bestiary. So this is mostly pictures, but with each picture there's words, so I read it, so technically I read it, but it's just absolutely gorgeous. This is actually my mum's, so let me just try and find a page where you can see that there's words as well. So I did actually read it, I swear down. Look, So for example, look at all these words, yeah, but it's also mostly pictures. And it just goes through all the characters from the labyrinth, and it's just amazing. And it has words with each one, talking about them. And it was just so good. The artwork is incredible. I enjoyed it immensely. And he is the best character, so let's finish on that. It's just absolutely stunning. Look at his face. He'll invite you into tea. Look at him, look at him. But yeah, if you like The Labyrinth, you will probably enjoy this book. If you like art books, you will probably enjoy this book. And I very much enjoy both of them. So yeah, as I was reading it, it just made me really want to rewatch The Labyrinth. So yeah, it's really good. The artwork's amazing. Good times. After that, I read, or in fact I reread, Deadpool Volume 1 Secret Invasion. So on the buzzword thing, if you're doing the buzzword thing this year, in March the word was secret. You had to read a book with the word secret in, and all the ones that I owned I'd already read. So I did go to the library. If you watched my TBR for March, you would have seen I had another random book, but I started reading it and it was really fucking boring. And then I remembered like a week in, after I'd read about 30 pages, that I hadn't put it on my Goodreads. So I went on Goodreads and it had like a 3-star average, and I thought, you know what, everybody else thinks this book is shit, so it probably is. So then I just stopped reading it. I just reread this instead. But also, again, when I put it on Goodreads, it was been like 6 years since I read this, so it felt like the first time pretty much. I couldn't remember most of it. It's just Deadpool doing stuff, fighting things, doing cool things, being Deadpool. This is the sort of artwork. And yeah, it was a fun time. I have a bunch of Deadpool comics. I really need to read them. I was gonna wait until I had all of them, but then when I realised, I looked at this and it's been like 6 years since I read number 1. Maybe I should stop waiting to get them all. I only don't have like number 4 and number 7 because I wait until I find them for like £2 second hand. So yeah, I really should get them read. It was just Deadpooling about, you know, being Deadpool and that, you know. After that I read Thud by Terry Pratchett. This was a book that I was very much apprehensive of reading because my sister and my dad absolutely love Terry Pratchett. I've never read him before. Luckily, it was a success. I did really enjoy it. I'm so glad, because I was just so scared that I was going to read it and just not enjoy it. But I did. See, what was good, because I know he was like silly, but I didn't know how silly the books were and if they'd be too silly for me. But there's actually a proper storyline and it was really good. But then also just like sprinkling in the funny bits. So I thought it was really good. Also, it has footnotes in, which, like, historically I'm not a fan of footnotes, but it was actually done in a really like proper way. Like, this is how footnotes should be done, because it'll be talking about something and then the footnote will be something just really random and silly, but also it's like not part of the story, but it's giving you a little tidbit, which is what footnotes should be. Not like half a page's worth of words that could have just been put in the text, which is what footnotes have been that I've read in books previously, and that's why I hate them. But in here, it was like, for example, at one point the trolls were talking about something and the footnote was, oh yeah, trolls actually believe that time moves backwards, which is funny and fun and a little tidbit, but it's also not a part of the story, so you need it in a footnote, so it made sense. But yes, in here we follow the Watch, and there's this big old kick-off about Coombe Valley, and then somebody dies, a dwarf dies, and then trying to figure out what's going on, who killed him, did a troll kill him, was it somebody else? And then all stuff happens. And yes, I did very much enjoy it, and I'm so glad I did, because I was so scared that if I didn't I'd get disowned by my sister. But luckily I still have family. Yes. And then last but not least, talking about my sister, I read Tales of the Magic Weavers, a Guild of Fantasy anthology. This was an anthology of self-published writers. They're all in here. There's like 8, I think. Yeah, it says it right there. There's 8 stories of fantasy. I mentioned my sister. My sister is in here, which is why I bought it. She's actually the first story in here is my sister's, Kay MacLeod. Go and read all of her books. And I'm not even saying this in a biased, we're related sort of way. Hers is the best one in here. It's so good. It's like the perfect opener, because it's going to get you grabbed in because it's so freaking good. And then unfortunately the second one is like the worst one in here, so it kind of went, I was like, woohoo! But then luckily, reading through it, most of them I did enjoy. There were just 2, there was that second one, and then I enjoyed the third one, and then the fourth one I remember was quite mediocre. I think mostly it was the writing. Like, Those two must have just been very, very new writers. Maybe they've not got other things out. Maybe this is their first publication, because it just felt very, not very well written. You know, when things are overly explained, it was that sort of thing where you know it needs editing, but they don't know how to edit yet, and they don't know. My camera died, where was I? Yeah, it's like when authors don't realise that they don't have to write all of the words that they're thinking, like overly written. So for example, I just had a flick through to try and find a bit. So this paragraph just did not need to be in here. For example, he could go practice magic. They called it magic with a K because it came from deep within their veins and centres. The non-magic humans always wrote and pronounced it with a C because they believe it was just trickery, like a magic magician's at some party. Like, that's not necessary to the story. You don't need to tell us why you're calling it magic with a K. We know fantasy stories, sometimes it's called magic with a K. It doesn't need to be explained in the story. You know what I mean? Like, them sort of things. It just felt kind of overly written. Some of them did in some places. Like, they could have cut out many sentences on every page because it was just like overly described, if you know what I mean. It's like they haven't found their style yet, their proper voice, yeah, that sort of thing. But yeah, moving past the sort of handful that were like that, there were a couple, like I say, like the second story, the fourth, and I think there was one more that was like not as bad. Not terrible, but not bad as the other one, but not as good as the other ones. But in general, most of the book I really enjoyed. Like I said, my sister's was the best. And I'm not saying that just because she's my sister. I think she probably just has more experience. She has written quite a few books. You can just see that she has her own style and her own way of writing, whereas some of the other ones haven't quite got there yet. But I did enjoy most of the other stories in here. The last, no, not the last two, like the second to last one and the third to last one. I don't know why I just say it like that. Those two were really long. They were like 40 pages each, whereas the other ones were about half that size. And when I noticed that, I was like, oh, the end of this book is going to drag. But I actually thought they were both really good, and I read them really fast. Like, they were both pretty decent. So yeah, in the end, I think I gave this a 3.5. I gave it a 4 on Goodreads because I do think, in general, it's a good anthology. Like I said earlier on, I read 2 anthologies this month. I'm normally not really a massive fan, but I think both of them were pretty good going for anthologies and for me as a reader, so it's a win. And just like the whole month was pretty much a win. I didn't read any like real dud things. Like I mentioned earlier, there was one of the World Book Day ones that I was not really a fan of. I think in my video I said 3 stars, but I think I actually ended up giving it 2 or 2.5, I can't remember. But yeah, in general, a really good reading month. So yeah, let me know down below what you read in March. If you read any of these, did you pick up any of the World Book Day books? Did you participate in any readathons? I didn't mention it in this video. I never do in my wrap-ups. I do my TBRs. And then I'm like, oh, I'm doing this TBR for this readathon. And then I just never mention it in my wrap-ups. But for that one, I was doing the Roll of Reads from Mel at A Book For You Know Mel. So yeah. Let me know down below anyway. Like if you want, subscribe if you want, watch some more videos if you want. If you haven't watched my World Book Day vlog, which you probably haven't, because like loads of people do vlogs and they could do really well, but whenever I do a random one, that's just not the content that people want from me. But if you want to watch that, it's probably on the screen right now. And if not, then I'll see you later. And I'll see you soon with another video. Bye.